All right, looks like we're live. Okay, as always, we always do our panic check to make sure everything's working properly. And hopefully it is. Let's check it out. Everything good on your side, hon? All right, we are live then. Alrighty then. So, this is a tough forecast. I'm sure we all, wow, there's a lot of people here already on both sides of the chat. Thank you again. First of all, good evening, everyone. As you can see, I'm a little discombobulated here because this is a very difficult forecast, and I know that a lot of you probably have logged on to find out exactly what is going to happen, and I'm not going to be able to tell you that. And you're not going to hear this from a lot of different sources, but the forecast that we are dealing with here is one that is very complicated and very difficult. Now, the operational guidance, that's your GFS, European, Canadian, they are basically an inland track. A warning sign is that all your ensemble guidance is over the coastal waters, the track. This is a warning sign because what it's telling you is that there is a large degree of volatility in this forecast. So first, I figure, look, let me show you the water vapor satellite picture. I'll walk you through what I'm looking at, some of my concerns with the forecast, give you my ballpark idea of what I think is going to happen. But again, that can change. And then I'll take your questions. And then we'll walk through that. And we'll probably spend a great deal of the evening answering questions. Don't bother asking, what about my backyard? Because I don't know. I don't know right now. I really don't. And that's the honest opinion, okay? So if you're looking for how many inches of snow in your backyard for this storm, you're going to be disappointed because I don't post snow maps this far out, and I don't post or I don't make promises about how much snow or ice anyone's going to get because the volatility is just too great. One thing I will say is that this pattern is very favorable for a major winter storm. So favorable that I basically was able to pick this period out all the way back in early December. And I basically said, look, watch out for the middle of January 15th to 17th, somewhere in that ballpark. It will set up the time period for us to see the potential for a major storm where the subtropical jet stream and the polar jet stream will start to interact. This pattern is not going away anytime soon. And my original thoughts for January have changed because of what's happening with the polar vortex being constantly stretched. That's going to keep us in a constant active cold weather pattern. And if some of the ensemble guidance is correct for day 10 to 15, if you think it's been cold so far, you just wait, because things are about to get rather frigid and possibly stormy as well. We'll have to watch out for that. But let me start off with the water vapor satellite picture on the west coast, okay? Now, this is our storm out here. And then this way up here is another piece to our storm. The problems that we have right now is that this has not been getting sampled, so to speak, okay? That means that it hasn't gotten the best data. It's been in a data poor area in the Pacific. I know that they sent a plane out, and some of that data is going to be introduced into the 0Z guidance. But the other problem is that you have a shortwave way up here, and models are notorious for doing a poor job in handling shortwave interactions that come up from basically the Yukon territories, dropping south through British Columbia and heading towards the northern plains and interacting with a shortwave that's also diving into the plains. So they tend to produce wild swings in guidance. And if you want to know where I got that information from, it is the meteorological Bible for Northeast snowstorms. Of course, the Coast and Ustalini book. You probably noticed on Twitter I've mentioned KU storms. This is it, guys. So this is volume 2, all the case studies. I've been checking this out every morning. And of course, volume 1 is like all the meteorological reasoning and research behind it. So I've been studying these books, and what I've been noticing here is that this shortwave is very dynamic and very, very strong, well together shortwave. And it's closing off into an upper level low pretty nicely. Now it's going to weaken while moving over the Rockies, but I'm not convinced it's going to weaken significantly. So there's that question. Then this shortwave up here, I think it's pretty well forecasted by the GFS and European as far as the initial 12 hours out. But then each solution of the model guidance, now, while everyone's focused on where the surface low is, each solution of the 500 millibar pattern shows a different solution with each outcome. So what that basically means is that we're seeing different ways of the model handling this shortwave. And this shortwave way up here, well, that's going to be really important because as it's diving south, it's going to interact with this shortwave here, and that is what starts to kick it into a negative tilt. So let's pull up the model guidance here. We'll use the GFS because that's the furthest west, okay? And so we can see exactly what it's doing. And again, I'm going to come back and answer all your questions and everything. I just kind of want to walk you through what I've been looking at, okay? So we'll go to 12Z. There's our storm coming in. Again, let's go back here. By this evening, there's our storm out in the Pacific. There's our shortwave way up here. Now you see how they start to interact? That's what causes our shortwave to close off into upper level low. Got a positively tilted trough over Texas and Oklahoma. Dive south. And then there's our next shortwave coming in behind this. Now, why is all of this important? So look, we already talked about 3 shortwave interactions. The reason why this is so complicated is that if one of these shortwaves is misforecast by just a little bit, then you have a completely different forecast. The reason why this is so far west in the GFS is that it tries to phase everything early. And so this upper level trough, instead of trying to remain separate, it starts to merge or phase with the polar jet stream, and this shortwave comes in the back of it, kind of like a weight, and causes it to tilt in a negative tilt way early. And so as a result, you end up with a surface low back here over central Pennsylvania and a major rain event, and possibly some flash flooding as well. The problem with this solution is that the GFS is notorious for trying to overphase guidance like this. It does a really bad job in trying to overphase these short waves and these far western solutions. And a warning sign of that actual error, which usually comes by via a convective feedback error. Basically, thunderstorms are being created that really aren't going to be created. So what that does is that it causes a erroneous westward shift in the guidance. Whereas you could tell that there's an error because the ensemble guidance is all further east. Now, when you look at ensemble guidance, and let me pull that up real fast here. And let's see, yeah, this works. Okay, when we look at the ensemble guidance, The trough is further east. And the surface lows, we'll do this one right here. This ought to work. Ends up much further east. Let's zoom in on that. Now, why is this important? Well, first of all, understand with the ensemble guidance, and it's not just one model, it's several models, so this is the average of it. So it leads to a lot of different solutions, but what this is basically the ballpark average, and the ballpark average is much further east than the actual operational. So that tells me that there's trouble afoot in this forecast. And not that the ensembles is going to be 100% correct, but it tells me, look, this forecast is not something that's locked in. And you need to be aware of what could potentially change its forecast. So we talked about the short waves. I want to also bring up something very important, and this will use the European guidance here. And we'll jump to Saturday night. Now here we are on Saturday night. This is Arctic air. Arctic air is like molasses. It doesn't like to give way very easily, okay? Especially in storm situations where you have a very dry Arctic air mass, and then you're trying to draw moisture into it. The problem is when you throw moisture into it, you also have cooling, evaporational cooling. So a lot of times, models do not handle the low-level dynamics of this whole process. So this is another warning sign for me. So where do I think that this storm sets up? First of all, I think that the operational guidance is too far west. I think it's going to shift east. I'm not sure how much it's going to shift east, but I think it will shift east. If you're looking for an all-snow event, I definitely think the Poconos, northwestern New Jersey, the Catskills, I think those are a good bet. I am very concerned about the I-95 corridor to be a wintry mix mess. Snow, sleet, maybe a little rain, going back to sleet, going over to snow, mixing back over to sleet. How much, I'm not sure, but this looks like a real mess to me. And the reason why is because Arctic air is really hard to root out, and it tends to linger more than what guidance suggests 5 to 7 days out. I think we'll see that more and more in the guidance as we get closer to the storm event, and you get a better feel of what the lower dynamics are like leading up to the storm. So that's the one thing. And that also leads to another question, that if you have that Arctic air in place, you already have a national thermal gradient. The surface low typically is going to focus towards that thermal gradient. Now, I looked at several different models. I'm not models, but historical references to this storm. I only found 3 similar storm events over 180 years worth of data that showed a track where it redevelops around North Carolina, eastern North Carolina, and then goes back to the northwest. Most of these storms track along the coastal plain or just over the coastal waters where the thermal gradient is strongest. So that's another thing to just keep an eye on, and kind of leads towards that concern of all the ensemble guidance further east of the operational guidance. The other thing, the final thing I want to bring up, is that regardless of track, and regardless of what model you're looking at, pick the GFS, the European, the UK Met, the Canadian, whatever. Every single one of them produces this jet streak. Let me use the regular one. I think that's probably better. Sorry about that. Okay, you see this jet streak right here? Now, let's just say that this storm ends up further east. This jet streak here sets up a very dangerous scenario here. In that, first of all, it's going to enhance strong wind gusts. So we're definitely looking at possibility for wind gusts over 50 miles per hour with this storm. Okay, regardless whether it's rain, snow, whatever, you're talking about wind damage. You're also talking about the potential for moderate coastal flooding. I'm going to stay away from the major coastal flooding because the storm moves pretty quickly, but definitely moderate coastal flooding along the Jersey Shore, Delaware, Long Island, Connecticut, southern New England, you name it. It also leads to an enhancement of precipitation that wherever the tail end of this jet streak is, that's typically where we have very cold air locked in. That's going to lead to an intense snow band setting up somewhere just to the west of this jet streak. So if this storm ends up further east, and you're talking about a powerful snow band marching up the I-95 corridor. If it ends up west like this, you're talking about eastern and northeastern and central Pennsylvania just getting plastered. And also, I just saw Rob's tweet there. Yes, there's also a full moon considerations as well. This has me concerned because it's showing up regardless of the solution, whether east, west, or in the middle of the storm track of this jet streak developing. And it's one which is a major warning sign for wind damage, coastal flooding, enhanced heavy precipitation, just a nasty storm all around. Okay. Now, the 18Z guidance has come out. It's tracking this storm. Let's see if we can get the ensembles on this. Because what I want to do is take a look at the ensembles winds, because then I could track the 850 millibar low, which gives us an idea on the rain snow line. Interesting. This one shifted a little bit further east. Still a warm solution, snow going over the rain on the coastal plain, but it takes longer in this one because of the evolution of the 850 millibar low. Okay, so 0Z guidance is going to be something to watch. So that is so far my preliminary ideas on this storm. And oh, by the way, if you're thinking that this pattern is going to be breaking down anytime soon, remember what I told you guys about the polar vortex? And if it keeps on getting stretched, that our cold pattern is going to be hanging around for a bit. Well, it's getting stretched. And the key is the orientation. See how it's oriented like this, like towards North America, basically kneeling right in? This transports cold air right into the eastern and central United States. And the ensemble guidance, very impressive. If this stretching actually happens, and it looks like it's very well supported by all the guidance, and by the way, the GFS ensemble guidance for this time period also strongly supports a prolonged period of stretching and shifting towards North America. This means that there will not be a relaxation towards the end of January, that this cold active pattern goes all the way into at least early February, if not mid-February, before we start to see relaxation. So if you don't get this storm, guess what? There's more storms and more cold air on the way. So winter is not done by a long shot. So that's all I got for as far as my thoughts on everything. We're going to learn a lot with this storm when this gets into the West Coast tomorrow morning. When that happens, game on. So I'm going to take your questions. I'm sure there's a ton of them. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I just saw on YouTube and also on the premium chat. So we're going to do the premium chat. And as always, take the best questions from YouTube and go from there. Let's see here. Okay. And wow, there's a lot of good questions here. So we're going to start way back here. Let's see here. Okay, Martin asks a bit of a newbie question, but would love a quick explanation of a shortwave and how it drives weather. Okay, so basically, a shortwave is a feature in the atmosphere where you have warm air transport ahead of it and cold air transport behind it. Ahead of a shortwave, you have lifting. That's where you have all your precipitation. Behind it is where you have sinking air. That's where you get like your high pressure system, right? So a shortwave or a trough is the one of the lifting parameters that gives you precipitation, low pressure development, your weather, basically. It is a feature driven by changes in temperatures at various levels of the atmosphere. So it's basically a way for the atmosphere to balance out those differences in the atmosphere. Good evening, Dave. All right, so Cardax is not related directly to the current storm threat, but see that there is a healthy feed from the tropical Pacific through the Gulf of Mexico and Caribbean up into the 70 millibar polar vortex. That's the PV flux that we've been talking about. The feed of air from the tropics at that level continues. The 10 millibar seems to be getting reestablished as well. All right, well, this is all because the polar vortex is stretching. If you're looking for this to be a major stratospheric warming event, though, thus far there is no data to support that at all. Basically, a lot of weaker hits on the polar vortex, which is stretching it, but nothing that would cause a split. Basically, what you're seeing is what should be happening. Anthony asks, can you explain what you mean in Twitter about KU type storms? Sure. Basically, a coastal Mussolini type snowstorm storm is basically your major snowstorm. They could be Miller A's, Miller B's, Alberta Clippers, but they're generally your most impressive winter storms over the Northeast. And we call them KU storms because Doctors Coaston and Mussolini did such an amazing job of explaining them, breaking down all the clues and some of the call signs for these storms, so you could pick them up ahead of time and forecast them well in advance of what most guidance allows you to. Also looks like there is now a healthy 500 millibar low south of the Aleutians, a good trough at 250 millibars, the same spot. Yes, the fundamental change why we are seeing colder weather and stormier weather is that we got rid of that huge ridge in the Gulf of Alaska, and now we have basically a nice trough here, an upper level low to the south of the Aleutians, which sets up your dynamics to set up your trough over the eastern United States. Is this pattern the kind that after this storm, wherever it goes, will be susceptible to the second follow-up storm the following week, and so on? It's possible. I want to get through this storm before making that declaration. I kind of want to see how it impacts the 500 millibar pattern overall, but it's certainly a possibility. Let's see. Rob tells me 18Z EPS is back to chaos, much starting to spread back out. Ah, yes. Let's take a look and see what we got here with the 18Z guidance. Let's see if we're able to pull it up yet. And here it comes. Oh yeah, that's a spread. Okay, so basically you have a spread basically from central Pennsylvania to the coastal waters. So basically what this is telling me is that model guidance is very much uncertain. There's a high degree of volatility right back. The 12Z was a little bit more concentrated and clustered more all over over the Delaware River. But now we're seeing in the 18Z guidance, which again, you don't want to make that as a forecast, but you're seeing the spread returning. So I think that we're about to see some major shifts in this forecast over the next 24 hours. Do you think the GFS can be right? I mean, it's possible. I just think it's too far west. I think it's overphasing too much, to be honest with you. So that's why I think it's too far west. It's possible, though, depending on how these shortwaves interact. But like I said, there's only 3 occurrences over 180 years of the overphasing solution verifying and pulling a storm to the northwest in this type of pattern, with the type of pattern that's set up in the Atlantic. How does the storm this Friday for the fishes affect the storm for Monday? The storm on Friday, which is right here, sets up your block and your strong high pressure system ahead of the storm. Without this storm, you don't get your Arctic air mass able to build in and setting up this event in the first place. This storm slows everything down here to allow it to intensify and even have a chance to cut up the coast. If it wasn't for this storm, this would just head straight out in the Atlantic and would not be a concern at all. Matthew asks, earlier you mentioned more cold weather coming. How cold are we talking and for how long? Well, preliminary guidance does suggest that yesterday's cold weather might be nothing compared to what's coming, but don't hold me to that. That basically looks like teens for highs coming up for towards the end of this month, and that looks like it's going to be lingering into early February. And I would not be surprised if we get a couple of storms out of this, by the way. Will ocean temperatures impact the storm track? It will definitely have a factor. Absolutely. The coastal front will definitely have a factor here, in terms of this track, in terms of the precipitation changeover rates, and where the precipitation and how fast does it go from snow to sleet, freezing rain, and rain. But I don't know those details just yet. Let's see. PV, that definitely is different from what you were saying even in last week about relaxation. Yes, I did mention when we were talking about relaxation is that if we were seeing a different evolution in the polar vortex, that I would have to adjust the forecast evolution for late January into early February. That's happening. So with that being the case, if I'm seeing a constant stretching in the polar vortex, that means that you build up your potential for mass building up over Western Canada, which in terms of maps would be like a ridge. And that means that you have your potential here for having cold air flood into the plains and the East Coast a lot easier. So the fact that we're seeing those observations and then we see the guidance, the model guidance react to those observations means that you fundamentally have to change your forecast. History says this storm passes about 50 miles east of Atlantic City, plus or minus 50 miles, so a sloppy 3-5 inches for I-95 and a foot 6 to 80 miles northwest of there. That's a possible solution. I don't think I'd have the confidence yet to be that specific, but it's definitely in the ballpark of possible solutions. Absolutely. Rob Island says Jacksonian just reported RAIL data shows our western ridge looks to be undermodeled. This is getting interesting. Yeah, Jack is really good at picking up those signals, and if you have a more amplified ridge here, let me pull up this right here. Okay, so this is 500 millibar heights, right? So if our ridge is more amplified, what that does is that it allows this trough to be deeper. And so what that does is that it allows your negative tilt to evolve more towards the coastal plain rather than over the interior. Because your ridge, if this ridge ends up being more amplified, that means this trough ends up being more amplified. And so you end up with a further east solution. So definitely that factor is, again, I've been saying for the past 48 hours, and I say it now. The actual forecast for this storm has not shown itself just yet. I think the model guidance is going to be changing quite a bit as a result. Let's see. Card X is, given the Arctic air in place, seems like the rain potential for the storm may be as much of an ice potential than the plain rain threat for a lot of spots. That's certainly a concern I have. Absolutely. Denny Cox asks, hey Steve, is the NAO in a positive or neutral state right now? I heard you saying the storm is moving quickly, so that is because the NAO is positive. It is positive. It's actually going into a negative state. The storm is moving quickly relative to other type of storms where you sometimes get like a slowdown or stall or something of that nature. I'm not seeing anything of that type of evolution, but we certainly do have a negative NAO pattern developing with this storm. So the NAO is going from a neutral state to a negative state, but not enough to cause the storm to slow down to a crawl. So it's going to be moving at a pretty good clip, but slower than what we experienced with the previous storm, which was basically like a rocket. And then we get the next question from Paul. Will the storm move as fast as the storm from last week? No, I think that storm's going to be moving. This storm's going to be moving slower than that one. Is there a threat for a dry tongue? Yes, absolutely. That would depend on where the 700 millibar low is, and then that's where you get your dry slot. So if the storm tracks east of you, you're going to miss that dry slot. If it tracks over you or to the west of you, then you will. Is this a Miller A storm? I would call it a hybrid Miller B, because you definitely see a transition towards the coast, a jump towards the coast. So that typically puts you in a Miller B solution. Alan X, Steve, is there a chance that the low tracks over the benchmark, or is that asking too much? There is a chance. I think probably it's going to be tracking to the west of the benchmark a little bit, but there is that chance. I can't rule anything out right now. Joshua asks, am I correct in that the southern mid-Atlantic has gotten more snow than you had originally thought for this winter? Not really. We had one winter storm. The winter isn't over yet, so we'll see how it all ends up. Evan asks, what will need to keep the storm well offshore where only I-95 on east gets the heavy precipitation? Complete fundamental change of the entire weather pattern. I don't think that's going to happen. Nope, not with this storm. This is going to be a storm that impacts the interior and the coast. The question is where is that rain snow line sets up and how the surface low evolves. This is going to be a big storm and a moisture loaded one at that. Treat this never named winter storm as a hurricane. Give us your personal cone of certainty of the low. Don't know yet. Not going to do it. Nope. Let's see. Jones asks, but don't we usually get our best storm potential when the NAO is transitioning? Yes, we do. That's very true. It is a storm on Monday looking like the trigger you feared. Yes, possibly. What is the wind potential for this storm? I'm seeing the potential for wind gusts over 50 miles per hour with this storm on the coast. Wind to trough digging more as a result of a stronger western ridge is in a slower moving up the coast, as it could give a chance for 50-50 low becoming more entrenched. It's possible. Absolutely. And then Rob asks, and I'm going to check out YouTube. Rob asks finally, is the fact that we have a La Nina with an east base and negative NAO at all giving you pause that the ensembles are wrong? Climatologically, wouldn't this cause the cutter solution typically? First of all, we really haven't had a cutter solution yet. Really. And second of all, this is building more towards a west base negative NAO rather than east base negative NAO. So I'm not too concerned about that. reminds of some of those storms. Rainstorm Alliance gets up somewhere in central New Jersey, stalls out, and then turns south. Yep, that's definitely true. That definitely happens. Okay, let me check out YouTube. Oh boy, we have a lot here.
There's not a lot of questions. There's maybe one or two good ones.
Okay, well, let's see here. Oh, the snowstorm. Let's see here. Kenneth mentions, I think too many other forecasters are jumping too quickly to the conclusion. Quick minor thump, 1 or 2 inches of snow on Jersey coast, and then heavy rain. Oh, excuse me. I don't like to comment on other forecasters and what they do, but I will say that I personally would not be putting out any maps or anything of that nature. Let's see here. And I'm going through GFS, especially also European Operational Solution, have constantly been to the far west of the ensemble average. Real strange. 18Z GFS ensemble averages great spot for I-95. Yeah, I agree. I think the ensembles was a warning sign. I definitely agree with that. Let's see here. Whereas you really don't know what's going to happen yet. That's from Baba Booey. Wow. Okay. Well, I mean, I could lie to you and like some other people are and put out maps and tell you this is what's going to happen. No. No, I don't know exactly what's going to happen just yet. I know what I'm looking for, and I know what the parameters of this threat is. I know for a fact that if you're on the coast, you should be prepared for coastal flooding and also strong winds. I can tell you that this is going to produce very heavy precipitation, rain and snow. And I can tell you that Sunday night and Monday morning is going to be very, very poor conditions for travel for the Monday morning rush hour. Who gets what? How much icing? No, I don't know. That's the truth. That's the honest truth. I don't know. But of course, I'm diligently working on it. Let's see here. My daughter, okay, interesting. My daughter's driving from Rockland County to Binghamton University Sunday. I'd leave early on Sunday. That'd be my suggestion. Still a chance Philadelphia could see 20 inches of snow. I don't know who put that out, but I'm sure Tech will not be forecasting 20 inches of snow in Philadelphia for this or any storm several days out. I mean, first of all, let's be honest. If you want to tick off a group of people, tell them that they're going to get 20 inches of snow 7 days out in a forecast and then not have it verify and watch the reaction. It's not pretty. Let's see here. A lot of snow signs, this and that. Let's see. Oh, okay. Do you think the NWS was too quick to jump the gun? They're already calling for rain. Look, when you have to put out a forecast, right? So you look at the best model guidance and then you provide that data. The National Weather Service, if you read their AFDs, they are pretty much as concerned about the volatility in this forecast as I am. But they got to put out a forecast. I'm going with more of a wintry mix. They're going with rain. Sometimes the way that they have their setup for forecasting in the zones, they go based on like a model mix. So they'll go with GFS, and that's dictated by a WPC. So sometimes they don't really have a choice in that matter. Steve, when is our Norlon Trough storm happening? It's not. Well, at least not right now. It's possibly in February, but nothing right now. NWS based their model on their forecast on one model, but to their credit, they say this may change. Yeah, in some respects they do. If you have a chance to read some of the WPC discussions, they talk about trying to do model blends and an average of guidance. Sometimes that works. Sometimes, at the very least, it puts you in the ballpark. Okay, can you speculate why the Lehigh Valley region of Pennsylvania is always on the border of these type of storms? Okay, well, part of that is your geography, right? In terms of you are in between two climate zones, one which is dominated by the Great Lakes and lake effect snow, and the other one which is dominated by a strong coastal plain and very dynamic um, thermal gradient via the Gulf Stream. So when you have that, you have an area of sinking air a lot of times, and that happens to be the Lehigh Valley. Um, doesn't always work out like that, but definitely is a feature and why sometimes the Lehigh Valley misses out. When do you think you'll have a good idea on the rain snow line? I think I'll have a good idea on this storm overall by the time we get to Friday. Okay, back to the premium chat here. If the 850 millibar cold pool over the Hudson Bay area gets pulled south, that is some brutally cold air. Yeah, exactly. Going to be a long night for you, staying up all night Sunday for live chat. Lots of coffee and more plowing for me. Yeah, it's a good chance that'll be happening. We'll see. I did that last time just to test to see how I would react, because I used to do that when I was younger. And then as I got older, I started to get like bad headaches and not feeling so well. I reacted pretty good, but I don't want to push myself. But we'll see. We'll see how we do with the live chat and how we set up with that. As of now, what is the timing of the storm? This is from James. Right now, I'm thinking that snow breaks out late Sunday night, like let's say after 10 p.m., and that's going to break out from south to north, and some of it's going to be surprisingly like a quick burst of heavy snow, and then we see that transitioning over to heavier precipitation, whether that's snow, sleet, or rain, as we move on into the early morning hours on Monday. And by Monday morning, we're in the complete throes of this storm. Let's see. Also, with north wind, Lehigh Valley gets downslope from the Poconos. Absolutely, yes, that's very true. Chiefs also play on Sunday. Yep, yes, they do. That should be a fun game at 8 o'clock at night. So I'm going to be sitting here following the storm while I have the Chiefs on the TV screaming at the Chiefs while also trying to follow the storm. So that should be crazy. And I see that YouTube, it remains very active here. This winter reminds me of the winter of 93-94 and 1984-85, especially later this month, well into February. Yeah, those could be good comparisons, possibly, especially with that cold air in the 80s. Absolutely. Thanks, Bobby. It's good to see you. EPA WA weather consulting. When, believe it or not, all of us meteorology companies, all right, all of us, we actually all talk, and we're all actually pretty good standing with each other. So we're always bouncing off ideas and stuff off each other. So it's actually a really good community because we all understand the stresses that we deal with. And the great thing about being in the Northern Mid-Atlantic is that there's always plenty of clients. So it's always good to have people, fellow meteorologists, bounce back and forth and discuss things. So let's see if we got any new data here for the European that's been coming out. It's too early still for any other 0Z guidance. I know that the NAM's coming out soon, but we're nowhere near the time period for using that guidance. Let's see here. Maybe this will work. So let's see what the 18Z is doing here. Dropping the storm south. Okay, this is an interesting signature here. This evolution. Look at where you see this right here. That's called cold air damming. And typically when you have very dense Arctic air building south like this, you force a redevelopment towards the coastal plain. You could see that trying to show up here in the guidance. And you see how the guidance here is very baggy here? That means that the model is having a difficult time separating and setting up where this primary low is in relation to the upper level low and the transition towards the coast. And oh, by the way, if you have any friends in the southeast, like, I don't know, South Carolina, Georgia, North Carolina, my parents, this is going to be a mess for those guys. And they don't handle snow and ice very well. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this sets up here. This signal here, well, I think that the next 48 hours is going to feature a lot of changes. And a lot of people who put out maps are going to be changing them quite a bit. Alan asks, Steve, are you confident in a quick moving storm or that can change? If I see more blocking in the northern Atlantic than what I'm seeing right now, then that could change. Yeah, that's what I would say. That's what I would look for. So it's possible, but let's see here. Meteorologists get along anyway. Yeah, for the most part. Let's see here. Great job on the live chat. You have evolved this format into something great from the old days. Thank you. Trying. Don't listen. Oh, God. I would say this has been a great opportunity to talk to you guys about the weather and to share my passion and educate the public. Because let's face it, there's a lot of individuals out there that will post anything to get you to click. You know, it would be very easy for me to just create some map and just say, oh, we're going to see outlandish amounts of snow regardless of changeover or some ridiculous nonsense like that. Or try to tell you that we're going to have a historic winter every year. I think that the best way to build an audience is to be honest and to tell you the truth. And when I don't know something, like I'm telling you tonight that there are things I don't know, then I'm going to be honest about it because you deserve that. And premium members, when we do this almost every day, go back and forth with emails, videos, discussions. If there isn't, I've learned that if there is a time where I don't know something, it's better to say I don't know than to try to BS my way through it. And you probably don't really learn that until you get kicked in the butt a few times, especially in your 20s. But I would say that this storm's going to be a challenge. I mean, I'm kind of excited about it because I love this type of challenge. I mean, you can ask my wife. I just get all giddy. I'm running around, and
Christmas Eve.
Yeah, pretty much. And I love trying to figure out these storms. But I also get annoyed because I care about this field so much. I care about meteorology so much. When I see someone posting a GFS snow map from 5 to 7 days out, it drives me nuts because some people that do it, they should know better. So again, what I'm seeing here in some of this evolution here, if I was looking for a rapid warm-up, I'd want this high out here in the Gulf of Maine. The fact I'm now seeing it over here. Let me see what the 12Z guidance did for the same time period. Yeah. See, it was further east. See, when you have this further east solution, you can set up your low pressure system developing around Georgia on the Georgia coast. Now, it's over New York, central New York State and Pennsylvania. You're seeing more bagginess off the coast. I think there's changes afoot. I really do. I really, really do. JP asks, amidst the first half of the chat, what was your 30-second overview of the upcoming winter pattern? If you like this pattern, stormy, active, cold, you're going to love the next couple of weeks because it's going to remain that way. Looks like into early February at the very least. Let's see here. What is the difference between a polar vortex and the Arctic dome? Okay. All right. That's a good question. Okay. All right. How do I explain this? Okay. Polar vortex is a circulation in the atmosphere in two structures of the atmosphere. The first one is the stratosphere, which is basically between 1 millibar and 100 millibars. That's this sucker right here, okay? This is what we talk about with stretching and whatnot. Another vortex is in the troposphere. That's below 100 millibars down to the surface. Let me see if I can pull that up real fast here. I'll see if I can get more of a global view on it. I might not be able to. Let me try GFS. Well, basically, it's that. Okay? And the polar vortex in the troposphere is a strong, deep area of lower heights that allows that basically focuses the cold air. Okay? And it drives the polar and the Arctic jet streams. In fact, let me see if I can get maybe a different view of this. Maybe an Arctic view. That would have been nice. I have to pull up an Arctic view next chat. But basically, what that is that the circulation in the atmosphere. An Arctic dome is simply just an Arctic air mass. All right, they call it an Arctic dome on your news or TV or whatnot as a description. Okay, it's not really an actual meteorological term. Let's see here. Let's see. Any chance that blocking high on the east slows the storm down for a longer duration? There's always a chance. I can't rule out anything, but right now, I'm not seeing that. I would say this. You have to, based on the data I'm seeing, you have to leave a lot of options open here. You cannot lock yourself into an all rain event or all snow event or say that you know exactly what's going to happen, how fast it's going to happen, all that stuff. Because when you have this type of spread in the ensemble guidance, it's a warning sign. It's a kick your ego in the butt sign. Because if your ego is doing the forecast and you lock yourself in and you don't give yourself the ability to adjust your forecast, you're going to be ending up in a world of hurt as a meteorologist, and you're also going to have a poor forecast for your clients. So yeah, I mean, all options are on the table right now. I am concerned about a shift east, and I am concerned about this being a significant winter storm for everybody. I don't think, if I was going to hazard a guess, okay, I don't think this is an all rain event for the coastal plain. I don't. Not with that Arctic air. There are a lot of moving parts. correct card. A lot of moving parts involved in this storm. I am very, very hesitant, especially with a strong high pressure system overhead, to forecast Arctic air, dry Arctic air, to be driven out of the coastal plain quickly. And that is a warning sign for sleet and freezing rain. And there have been numerous storms just over the past 5 years where the idea of it'll just go over from snow to rain, and then you end up with a prolonged period of like 6-7 hours of sleet and freezing rain. That wasn't forecasted. And it's because of the mishandling of the lower level dynamics in the atmosphere. So that is a concern. Okay? So it's something that we seriously have to watch out for. So I think that's it for tonight. It is 8:56. I'll take one more question in from the premium chat if anyone has it. It looks like Andy Jones. Yes, Andy. Send it in, and we will answer your question. So, and then after that, I think we'll probably start to shut down. Is there any reason we can't see your response in the chat? It's because I'm talking. That's why I'm not typing and talking at the. If I typed and talked at the same time, there'd be a lot of blowback. You'd hear a lot of clicking and clacking. Let's see here. We even had, our card says, we even had the year where south and southeast winds still produce ice instead of rain because the Arctic air simply would not move out at the surface. Absolutely. And in this case, there's a lot of volatility. That's the bottom line. There's a lot of volatility in the storm and a lot of things that we're going to have to watch out for. So I think we're going to call it for a night. I think we talked a lot about the evolution of this storm. If I get more data and something fundamentally changes, we might have a live chat on Saturday night. If it's warranted, if this storm ends up being far more colder than what the guidance is currently showing, then if it's a big enough threat, then then Saturday night I'd have to do it. It would be my responsibility to do a live chat to cover those threats and to go over the storm. So we'll go for that. That's it for tonight. Thank you all for joining. I really appreciate it. A lot of you guys came in. A lot of great questions. Super outstanding. You guys are outstanding with your questions. Even some of you with the interesting ones on YouTube. That is for sure. But again, thank you for joining. And as always, stay safe out there.